My name is Clara Bennett. I'm 35 years old, and if you told me 10 years ago that I'd one day skip my own sister's wedding, I would have laughed at you. Family meant everything to me, or so I thought. But that changed the day they said I wasn't aesthetic enough to be part of my sister's perfect little fairy tale. The words still ring in my head like an echo that refuses to fade. "We need the family photos to look flawless," Mom whispered. And she said it while looking straight at me, with that same forced smile she'd always used when she wanted to sound kind while cutting deep. So I chose not to show up at all. Yes, the big sister who once braided Emma's hair every morning before school, the one who helped her pick her college outfits and stayed up all night helping her write her first love letter, wasn't aesthetic enough to stand beside her on her wedding day. You see, that morning I woke up early, sat at the edge of my bed, and stared at the lavender dress they'd sent me weeks before. It was beautiful, elegant, and so not me. I'd always been the quiet one. The one who didn't wear makeup, who preferred sneakers over heels, and who smiled with slightly crooked teeth I'd learned to love. But to them, love wasn't enough. Perfection was. And as I sat there, clutching that dress, I made a decision that would change everything. I folded it carefully, put it back into the box, and placed it on my doorstep for the courier who was supposed to pick it up. Then I turned off my phone, packed a small bag, and drove out of town. By the time the ceremony began, I was gone. And that was the beginning of everything that followed: the silence, the anger, the regret. But before I tell you what happened next, let me take you back to where it all started. Because the truth is, this story isn't just about a wedding. It's about love, cruelty, and the way people forget that kindness is more beautiful than any filter or flawless photo could ever be. So wherever you're watching or reading from, Toronto, New York, Vancouver, maybe Dallas, I want you to listen closely because this story could easily be yours too. I was born in Seattle, Washington, the first of two daughters to Daniel and Rebecca Bennett. Dad was a high school history teacher, one of those men who believed that books could fix the world. Mom, on the other hand, worked in fashion retail. She loved beauty, order, and appearances. Everything in our house had to look picture perfect, from the throw pillows on the couch to the color of our pajamas on Christmas morning. Then there was Emma, my little sister. 3 years younger, prettier, taller, and from a very young age, the kind of person who caught the light without even trying. When we were kids, people used to call her the sunshine child. Teachers adored her. Boys followed her around, and even when she messed up, she somehow made it look charming. Me? I was the opposite. The quiet one. The responsible daughter who handled chores, helped Mom, and tutored Emma when she was too distracted with her cheerleading practices. I didn't resent her, not at first. I loved her. Deeply. But somewhere along the way, that love became a one-way street. It all began the summer Emma got engaged. She called me one Sunday afternoon, her voice practically glowing through the phone. "Clara, he proposed. Oh my God, I'm getting married." I remember smiling so wide it hurt. "That's amazing, Em. I'm so happy for you." And I meant it. Because despite everything, she was still my little sister. I imagined standing beside her, fixing her veil, whispering to her not to cry before the photographer captured the first shot. I imagined laughter, family, love, all of it. But then came the first sign. A week later, Mom invited me over to help plan the wedding. I showed up with a binder full of ideas, thinking I could be useful. Instead, I found them sitting at the dining table surrounded by glossy magazines, mood boards, and color palettes. Mom looked up at me and smiled. Too tightly. "Oh, Clara, you're here. Perfect timing." Emma waved, her diamond rings sparkling under the light. "Hey, we were just going through bridesmaid options." "Oh," I said, smiling back. "So, who's going to be maid of honor?" Emma hesitated. "Well, actually, we decided on Lily. You remember her? My college roommate." I froze. "Lily?" But I thought. "It just makes sense." Mom cut in. "They're so close. And you know how busy you've been with your work. We don't want to pressure you." I swallowed my disappointment and nodded. "Of course. No problem." But that wasn't the end. 2 days later, I got another call from Mom. Her tone was soft, careful, the way it always was when she was about to say something cruel. "Sweetheart," she began. "About the wedding photos, we've been thinking." I already felt a coldness creep into my chest. Thinking about what? She hesitated. "The theme is very elegant. Very aesthetic, you know? And, well, we just want the photos to look cohesive." I frowned. "Mom, what are you saying?" Then she said it. "We need the family photos to look flawless." Flawless. That word cut sharper than any insult could. It wasn't that she said I couldn't be there. No. She just said I might feel more comfortable helping from behind the scenes. Which, in Mom's dictionary, meant stay out of sight. I laughed nervously, thinking maybe she was joking. "You're serious?" "Sweetheart," she said softly, "it's not about you. It's about the pictures. You know how social media is these days." And that was it. That was when something in me snapped quietly, like glass breaking in slow motion. All my life, I'd been the helper, the fixer, the one they leaned on but never looked at. And now, even on the day that was supposed to be about love, I wasn't beautiful enough to stand beside my own sister. I hung up without saying goodbye. That night, I stood in front of my bathroom mirror. The same face I'd seen for 35 years stared back at me. My brown eyes, my slightly wide nose, my uneven curls, my soft jawline. I wasn't flawless. But I was me. And maybe that was what scared them the most. Because I wasn't pretending. I wasn't filtered. I wasn't perfect. So, on the morning of the wedding, when the sun was just rising over Seattle, I made my choice. I didn't show up. I packed my car and drove north, away from everything. Away from the glitter, the cameras, the flawless smiles. I drove until the city disappeared and the mountains appeared in the distance. I didn't know where I was going, only that I needed to be anywhere but there. Hours later, I found myself sitting on a bench overlooking a lake in a small town I didn't even know the name of. My phone buzzed nonstop. Mom, Emma, even Dad, but I didn't answer. The first message read, "Clara, where are you? We need you here." The second, "You're making a scene. Please don't ruin this day." And then finally, "Fine. Do whatever you want." So I did. But as the wind brushed across the water and I stared at my reflection trembling in the ripples, I couldn't help but wonder, what would they say when they realized I truly wasn't coming? And what would happen when the pictures were taken, flawless as they wished, and I wasn't in them? Would they still look perfect then? Or would something be missing that no filter could ever fix? Because beauty fades, but guilt, it lingers. And that day was only the beginning. The knock that came at my motel door later that night changed everything. The knock came again, soft at first, then louder. I froze. I hadn't told anyone where I'd gone. My phone was still turned off, tossed onto the motel's nightstand like it didn't matter anymore. The room was small and quiet, with only the hum of the old air conditioner filling the silence. I'd picked this place on purpose. Off a winding highway, hidden by tall pine trees, the kind of place where no one would think to look. So when I heard that knock, my stomach twisted. I got up slowly, barefoot, my heart thudding against my chest. "Who's there?" I called out. No answer. Another knock, sharper this time. Then a voice. "Clara? It's me. Please open the door." I froze. I knew that voice. It was Dad. For a second, I didn't move. I wasn't ready to see him, not after everything. But when he called my name again, quieter this time, something in his voice cracked. And against my better judgment, I opened the door. He stood there, wearing the same gray suit he'd probably worn to the ceremony, his tie slightly undone, his face pale with exhaustion. He looked older. "Dad," I whispered. He gave me a small, tired smile. "You really thought I wouldn't find you? How did you?" He lifted his phone. "Your GPS, Clara. You never disabled it." I sighed and stepped aside. "You shouldn't have come." He walked in quietly, glancing around the tiny room. "You missed it," he said softly. "Emma's wedding." "I know," she cried. I'm sure she did.
He turned to look at me.
She wasn't crying because she was happy, Clara. She was crying because you weren't there. That hurt more than I wanted to admit. I looked away, pretending to be busy straightening the edge of the bedspread.
She didn't want me there, Dad. Not really.
None of you did. That's not true, he said, stepping closer. Isn't it? Mom literally said I wasn't aesthetic enough for the photos. What was I supposed to do? Show up anyway and ruin her perfect day? Dad sighed deeply. You know how your mother is. She gets caught up in details. She didn't mean it the way it sounded. I turned to face him. Then how exactly did she mean it, Dad? He didn't answer. He just looked down at the floor, rubbing his temples like the weight of our family had finally caught up with him. We sat in silence for a long time. The sound of cars passing outside was the only reminder that the world was still moving, even if I felt completely still inside. Then, after what felt like hours, he spoke. When you were little, he said, you used to follow Emma around everywhere. You'd carry her backpack, tie her shoelaces, defend her when she got in trouble. I smiled faintly.
Yeah.
I remember. You've always been the steady one, Clara. The one who never asks for anything. But sometimes that makes people forget you have limits. That was the first time my dad ever said something that felt like he saw me. But just as quickly as that moment came, it faded. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small envelope. Emma wanted me to give you this. I hesitated before taking it. The handwriting was hers, delicate, looping letters, exactly as I remembered. Inside was a note. Clara, I know you're hurt. I wish I could fix this, but everything feels so complicated right now. Please understand it wasn't about you. It was about the theme, the photos, the pressure. I'm sorry if you felt left out.
I really am.
But I still love you, and I wish you were here. Love.
Emma.
I read it twice, my chest tightening more with each word. It wasn't really an apology. It was a justification dressed as one. I looked up at Dad. She doesn't get it.
He didn't respond.
Maybe he didn't know what to say. I spent years making sure she never felt small, I said, my voice breaking. And she didn't even think twice before making me feel like I didn't belong. Dad exhaled slowly. Families are messy, Clara. Sometimes people don't realize how much they hurt you until it's too late. I shook my head. I don't think she'll ever realize it. He started to say something, but before he could, his phone buzzed. He looked at it and frowned. It's your mother. Of course it is, I muttered. She probably wants to make sure I haven't embarrassed her yet. He hesitated, then answered the call. Yes, Rebecca? Even from across the room, I could hear her sharp tone. Where are you? The guests are asking questions. I'm with Clara. There was a pause, then a cold voice. You found her?
Good.
Tell her the least she can do is send a message. She's making us look bad. Dad's face hardened. Rebecca, enough. She's not a prop in your photos. That stunned me. My father rarely ever raised his voice to my mother. There was silence on the line, then a click. She'd hung up. He sighed, sliding his phone back into his pocket. She'll calm down. I looked at him carefully. Will she? He didn't answer. That night, after Dad left, after he promised to talk to Mom and try to make things right, I sat on the bed, staring at the note Emma had written. Outside, the rain had started to fall in soft, steady sheets. The sound was oddly comforting, like a lullaby for the brokenhearted. But no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, something inside me was shifting. For the first time in years, I wasn't crying. I wasn't begging to be understood. I was angry. And that anger wasn't loud, it was quiet, calm, deliberate. The kind that makes you stop being the helper and start being the storm. Because deep down, I knew one thing. If they cared so much about appearances, they were about to see what it really meant when someone disappeared. The next morning, I woke up to a message from an unknown number. You shouldn't have left like that. People are talking. Mom is furious. Please come back before it gets worse. It was Emma again. But this time, her message wasn't just about guilt. There was fear in her tone. Something was happening back home. Something I didn't know about yet. And before the day was over, that something would turn everything upside down. When I woke up the next morning, the world outside was gray. The kind of gray that feels heavy, like the sky itself is tired. I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my phone. Emma's message blinked on the screen, waiting for me to respond. Please come back before it gets worse. I read those words again and again, trying to make sense of them. Worse? What could possibly be worse than being told you're not good enough for your own sister's wedding? I typed out a reply, then deleted it. Typed again. Deleted it again. Finally, I sent. What do you mean, worse? I waited. No response. An hour passed. Then 2. Still nothing. The silence was louder than any answer could have been. I got up, showered, and stepped outside the motel room. The air was cool, crisp, carrying the faint scent of pine and wet earth. I walked to the small diner across the street, a quiet little place with faded blue curtains and a sign that said Ellie's Breakfast Haven. Inside, the smell of coffee and pancakes wrapped around me like a warm blanket. A kind-faced waitress in her late 50s smiled when I sat down. Morning, Han. You look like you need a cup of coffee. I nodded, smiling weakly. You have no idea. As I sipped my drink, I glanced out the window at the mountains. They stood tall and peaceful, like they didn't care about weddings or families or being aesthetic. And for a moment, I wished I could stay there forever, just vanish into that quiet world where no one expected perfection. But then my phone buzzed again. It was a voicemail from my cousin Lily. Yes, that Lily, the same one who took my place as maid of honor. I hesitated before pressing play. Her voice came through shaky, nervous. Clara, hey. I don't know if you've heard yet, but something happened at the reception. I don't even know how to explain this. People are talking. Your mom's freaking out, your dad's not saying much, and Emma, she's not doing great. Just call me back, okay? Please. My stomach dropped. Something had gone wrong. And as much as I wanted to stay angry, a part of me, the same old part that always wanted to fix everything, started to worry. I paid for my coffee, left a few bills on the table, and walked outside. The clouds were darker now, the wind picking up. I sat in my car for a long time, gripping the steering wheel. Then, before I could overthink it, I started the engine. Seattle was 3 hours away. Halfway there, the rain began again, hard and fast, slapping against the windshield like the sky itself was unraveling. My mind kept racing. What could have happened? Maybe a fight? Maybe a scandal? Or maybe this was karma coming for all of them. By the time I reached the city, the rain had turned to mist. The roads glistened under the dim afternoon light. I parked a few blocks away from my parents' house, my heart pounding like a drum. The house looked exactly the same, perfect lawn, trimmed hedges, and that white porch swing Mom loved so much. Except this time, the perfection felt fake, like a stage after the show had ended. I hesitated before knocking, but before my hand reached the door, it swung open.
Dad stood there.
His shirt was unbuttoned at the collar, his eyes tired. He looked like he hadn't slept. Clara.
His voice was low.
Dad, what happened? He glanced behind him, then stepped aside. You should come in. I stepped inside slowly. The air felt thick, heavy with tension. There were suitcases near the stairs, half open, clothes spilling out. My mother was pacing in the living room, her hair disheveled, her lipstick smudged. When she saw me, she froze. For a second, she looked almost relieved. Then her face hardened again. Well, she said sharply, look who finally decided to show up. Mom, Do you have any idea what you've caused? She snapped. People were whispering, asking where you were. Your sister was crying in front of everyone. And then… Rebecca, Dad interrupted. Don't start. No. She needs to hear this. Mom's voice rose, trembling with anger. After she humiliated this family, after she abandoned her sister. I didn't abandon her. I cut in. You told me not to come, remember? We need the family photos to look flawless. Her lips pressed into a thin line, like she wanted to deny it but couldn't. Before she could reply, a small voice came from upstairs. Clara? It was Emma. I turned, And for the first time since all of this began, I saw her face. Her wedding makeup was gone. Her hair was messy. Her eyes were red and swollen. She looked like someone who hadn't just had a bad night, but like someone whose world had cracked open. She came down the stairs slowly, her hands trembling. I whispered. What happened? Her lips quivered, and for a second, I thought she wouldn't answer. Then, her voice broke. It's Ryan, she said. He's gone. I blinked.
Gone? What do you mean gone?
She took a shaky breath. He left right after the reception, packed his things, and disappeared. No note, no call, nothing. For a moment, I just stared at her. My brain couldn't process the words. He left on your wedding night? She nodded, tears streaming down her face. He said something about not being able to handle all of this, that everything felt fake, that the whole day wasn't real. I felt my chest tighten.
Fake.
That word echoed in my head. The very thing they'd wanted, the flawless, perfect, aesthetic wedding, had turned into a hollow performance. And Ryan, the groom, had walked out before the curtain even fell. Mom's voice cut through the silence. This is exactly why we didn't need drama. If you had been there, maybe he wouldn't have felt. I turned to her, my anger boiling over. Don't you dare blame me for this, Mom. Clara.
No.
You wanted everything to look perfect. You wanted perfect photos, perfect people, perfect lies. And look where that got you. She went silent, her face pale. Emma sank onto the couch, sobbing into her hands. I don't know what to do, she whispered. He won't answer my calls. He won't text. It's like he's vanished. I knelt beside her, my heart breaking despite everything. Hey, we'll figure this out, okay? She looked up at me through tears. Why are you being so kind to me? After what I said, after what Mom said. I took her hand gently. Because kindness isn't something I wear like makeup, Emma. It's who I am. She cried harder then, louder, shaking. Dad quietly stepped away, leaving us in the living room, surrounded by silence and half-packed bags. Outside, the rain started again, tapping softly against the windows. I didn't know what would happen next. I didn't know where Ryan had gone or what he'd done. But something told me this wasn't the end of it. And as I held my sister's trembling hands, I realized this was only the beginning of a storm none of us were ready for. Because sometimes, when you chase perfection too far, the truth comes crashing down harder than you ever imagined. And the truth about Ryan's disappearance, well, that would change everything. That night, I stayed at my parents' house for the first time in years. The air inside was thick with silence, no laughter, no music, not even the sound of Mom's endless voice giving directions. Everyone moved like ghosts. Emma was in her room, sitting on her bed in her wedding dress, still not ready to take it off. The lace sleeves were wrinkled, her mascara streaked down her cheeks. She looked like a porcelain doll left in the rain. I knocked softly on her door. She didn't turn. You can come in. I stepped inside, closing the door behind me. The sight of her broke something in me. Emma, you need to get some rest. She laughed weakly, her voice cracking. Rest? My husband disappeared hours after saying I do. How do I rest after that? I sat beside her. Do you have any idea where he might have gone? She shook her head.
No.
His phone's off. His groomsmen don't know. His parents said they thought he was staying here with me. He just left. Then she whispered something that made my skin prickle. Before he walked out, he told me the whole wedding felt fake. That the love felt staged. That he couldn't even recognize me anymore. I swallowed. Did something happen before he left? She hesitated. Mom was upset that you didn't show. She made a scene during the dinner. She told him that our family had an image to protect. I saw his face. He didn't say anything, but I knew he hated that kind of talk. I sighed deeply. That sounds like Mom. I tried to calm her down, she continued, but she told Ryan to keep me in line, to make sure I stayed classy during interviews and photos. He got quiet, really quiet, then just stood up and left. For a moment, neither of us said anything. The air between us felt sharp. I finally spoke. Emma, I know it hurts. But maybe him leaving isn't your fault. Her eyes filled again. Then whose fault is it, Clara? Because right now, it feels like mine. I reached out and hugged her. She sobbed into my shoulder, trembling like a child. And in that moment, I remembered every time I'd helped her through heartbreak, every time she came to me crying about friends, about grades, about mom's pressure. I'd always been her safe place. Even now, after she'd hurt me, I couldn't stop being that. As I held her, I whispered, "We'll find him." But deep down, I wasn't sure if that was true. Still, something inside me knew this. There was more to Ryan's disappearance than anyone realized. And by morning, I'd have to find out what it was. The next day started with shouting. Mom and Dad were in the kitchen, arguing loud enough for the neighbors to hear. I walked in quietly, still wearing the same jeans from yesterday. "You think this is all about me?" Mom snapped, her face red. "I was protecting this family." Dad slammed his hand on the counter. "Rebecca, you pushed everyone too far. You turned a wedding into a performance. I was trying to make it beautiful." "It was fake," he shouted. "Everything you do is fake." The room went silent. Mom's lips trembled, but she said nothing. I stepped forward. "Dad's right." Both of them turned to me. "Emma's hurting. Ryan's gone. And all you can talk about is image." I said, my voice shaking. "You told me not to come because I wasn't perfect enough for your photos. And now look, your perfect world's falling apart." Mom's eyes flashed. "Don't you dare blame me for that boy leaving." "He's not just a boy, Mom," I snapped. "He was Emma's husband. For less than a day." She opened her mouth, then closed it again. Dad ran a hand over his face. "Clara, maybe we should."
No, Dad.
I'm done staying quiet. I turned to Mom again. "You broke this family trying to make it look flawless. But love isn't flawless, Mom. It's messy. It's human." For a long moment, no one spoke. Then Mom whispered, "Get out." I froze.
What?
"You heard me. Get out of my house." "Rebecca," Dad snapped. But I didn't argue. I grabbed my jacket and walked toward the door. Before I stepped out, I looked back at her. "I hope one day you realize beauty isn't about what people see, it's about what they feel. And right now, there's nothing beautiful left in this house." Then I left. That evening, I sat in my car parked by the lake, the same one I'd driven to the morning of the wedding. The water was still, almost mirror-like, reflecting the fading sky. My phone buzzed. It was Emma. "Clara, I found something." I called her immediately. "What is it?" Her voice shook. "Ryan's friend sent me a message. He said Ryan's been staying at a cabin outside the city. He just needed time away." I let out a breath of relief. "Then we can talk to him. Maybe it's not over." But she didn't sound relieved. "He said Ryan left because of Mom. Because she said things to him that made him question the whole marriage." "What things?" "She told him that I only married him because he looked good in photos. That he was a perfect accessory." I felt my stomach drop. Oh my God. She poisoned it, Clara. She ruined everything. I gripped the phone tightly. "Text me the address. We'll go tomorrow." "Together?" "Together," I said. The next morning, we drove in silence. The cabin was 2 hours away, hidden in the misty hills north of the city. Emma sat beside me, clutching a small photo of her and Ryan from the engagement shoot, smiling, glowing, happy. When we arrived, the cabin looked quiet, surrounded by tall cedar trees. Smoke rose faintly from the chimney. Emma looked at me, her hands trembling. "He's here." We stepped out. The sound of gravel crunched under our shoes as we walked toward the door. I knocked. For a few seconds, nothing. Then the door opened. Ryan stood there. He looked exhausted, dark circles under his eyes, his beard unshaven. When he saw Emma, his expression shifted from surprise to guilt. "Emma," he said softly. She stepped closer. "Ryan, why did you leave?" He sighed and looked away. "Because everything felt fake. I stood there during the ceremony, and all I could hear was your mother telling me to smile wider, to fix my tie, to stand straight for the photos. I didn't feel like a groom. I felt like a mannequin. Tears welled in her eyes. But that wasn't me. I know, he said. But it was hard to tell where you ended and where your mother's perfection began. She shook her head. I'm not her. He looked at her, really looked, and something softened in his eyes. Then I stepped forward. Ryan, she's been through enough. Don't punish her for her mom's mistakes. He nodded slowly. I just needed time. I couldn't breathe, Clara. The whole thing felt wrong. But when I saw how broken she looked leaving that reception, I realized I still loved her. I just didn't know how to come back. Emma reached for his hand. Then come back now. He hesitated, then finally took it. Tears streamed down her face as she pulled him into a hug. Please don't ever disappear again, he whispered. I won't. For the first time in days, I felt something warm in my chest. Hope. But that moment didn't last long. Because just as we stepped outside to leave, a car pulled up behind us. It was Mom. The door slammed before I could say anything. Mom stepped out, still in her heels, her eyes burning with fury. So this is where you've been hiding, she snapped at Ryan. Do you have any idea how many people are gossiping right now? Mom, stop, Emma said. You're making it worse. I'm making it worse, she shouted. Do you realize what you've done to this family's name? Your name, I cut in. Not ours. She turned to me. Stay out of this, Clara. You've caused enough problems already. No, Mom, I said firmly, stepping closer. You caused this. You humiliated me, crushed Emma under your pressure, and drove Ryan away with your obsession for perfection. Her face twisted in anger. I only wanted the best, I shouted back. Then why does your best always destroy everyone around you? The air went still. Emma's eyes were wide, her voice trembling. Mom, please stop. But Mom didn't stop. She took a step forward, her voice trembling with rage. You think you know better than me? You, all of you, wouldn't even look presentable if it weren't for me. I held this family together. No, I said quietly. You held it hostage. Her mouth opened, but no words came. She just stared at me, her eyes shining, not with anger this time, but with something else. Realization. Ryan stepped forward then, his voice steady. Mrs. Bennet, I love your daughter. I don't care about image. I just want peace. But if that peace means cutting out the noise, then that's what we'll do. Mom blinked, stunned. Are you threatening me? No, he said softly. I'm freeing us. He took Emma's hand. They got into his car and drove off, leaving Mom standing there in silence. For a moment, I thought she'd scream again. But she didn't. Instead, she sank to her knees in the gravel, her face pale, her breath shaking. I knelt beside her. Mom. Tears rolled down her cheeks. I just wanted us to look happy. I took her hand gently. Then stop trying to look happy and start being happy. She looked at me, really looked at me, for the first time in years. Her lips quivered. You're right, Clara. For a long time, we stayed there, mother and daughter, broken in the quiet, surrounded by trees and regret. Later that night, I got a message from Emma. A photo of her and Ryan, smiling again, not posed, not perfect, just real. He's coming home. And we're doing it right this time. Small ceremony. No filters. I smiled through my tears. As for Mom, she started therapy 2 weeks later. She called me one evening and said, I think I'm learning what beauty really means. I told her, it's never too late. And as I looked out at the same lake where it all began, I whispered to myself. They said I wasn't aesthetic enough to be a bridesmaid. But maybe I was never meant to fit into their picture-perfect frame. Maybe I was meant to show them what real beauty looks like. Because beauty isn't symmetry. It isn't filters. It's truth. And sometimes, truth is the most aesthetic thing of all.